My parents gave my brother-in-law control of our family restaurant after my sister's constant pressure, but when he fired our best employees, changed our recipes, and nearly got us shut down by health department, they called me back to fix his mess. I, 29M, need to get this off my chest because I don't know what to do anymore. My family owns a small Italian restaurant that has been in business for over 20 years. My parents started it when I was 9 years old, and I have been working there in some capacity since I was 16. Let me tell you how I got involved in the restaurant business. When I turned 16, my parents let me work weekends as a busboy. I cleaned tables, swept floors, and helped with basic prep work in the kitchen. During my senior year of high school, I started working more hours and learned how to take orders from customers. After graduation, instead of going to college right away, I decided to work full-time at the restaurant to help my parents. Over the next 8 years, I worked in every single position at our restaurant. I started in the kitchen learning how to make our pasta sauces from my mother's recipes. I spent 2 years learning how to prepare all our appetizers, salads, and desserts. Then I moved to the main cooking station where I learned how to make every entree on our menu. I also worked as a server for 6 months to understand what customers wanted and how to handle difficult situations. My parents taught me how to order supplies from vendors, manage inventory, schedule staff, and handle the books. When our head cook quit 3 years ago, I stepped in and ran the kitchen for 4 months until we found a replacement. When our manager left 2 years ago, I took over those duties as well. Last year, my parents officially made me the general manager and started talking about me taking over the restaurant completely when they retire. The problem is my sister Riley, 32F, and her husband Kevin, 34M. Riley never worked at the restaurant except for a few weeks during high school when my parents forced her to help during our busy summer season. She hated every minute of it and complained constantly about the smell of garlic on her clothes and how tired she was after shifts. She went to college, got a degree in marketing, and now works for a small advertising company in the next town over. Kevin worked at the restaurant for about 2 years as our assistant manager. He handled scheduling, dealt with vendors when I was not available, and helped with hiring new servers. He was decent at these tasks but never showed much interest in learning the cooking side or understanding our family recipes. He also had some issues with our longtime servers because he would try to change procedures without consulting me or my parents first. About 6 months ago, Riley started making comments about how Kevin should be running the restaurant instead of me. She would bring this up during family dinners and holiday gatherings. She said Kevin had management experience and a business degree, while I never went to college. She also said it was not fair that I got to be in charge just because I was the son, and that Kevin was older and more mature. At first, my parents dismissed these comments. They knew how hard I had worked and how much I had learned about every aspect of the business. But Riley kept pushing. She would call my mother several times a week to complain about how I was not ready for such a big responsibility. She said I was too young and that Kevin had better leadership skills. The situation got worse when Kevin started agreeing with Riley and making his own comments. During staff meetings, he would suggest changes to our menu or procedures, then act frustrated when I explained why those changes would not work. He started questioning my decisions in front of other employees, which made things awkward for everyone. Riley also began criticizing everything about how I ran the restaurant. She said our social media presence was terrible and that we needed to modernize our image. She complained that we still used paper menus instead of digital ones. She said our dining room looked outdated and that we needed to renovate to attract younger customers. Every time she came to eat at the restaurant, she would find something to complain about and suggest that Kevin could fix these problems. The breaking point came 2 months ago during a family meeting at my parents' house. Riley spent an hour listing all the reasons why Kevin should be running the restaurant instead of me. She said he had fresh ideas and could bring new energy to the business. She also accused me of being stuck in old ways and resistant to change. She said I was holding the restaurant back from reaching its full potential. Kevin sat there nodding along with everything Riley said. He added that he had been thinking about this situation for months and believed he could increase our profits by at least 20% within 6 months. He said he had ideas for expanding our catering business and attracting more corporate clients. He also wanted to add a lunch buffet and start offering cooking classes. My parents looked uncomfortable during this entire conversation. They kept glancing at me like they wanted me to defend myself, but I was too shocked to say much. I had never expected this level of attack from my own sister and brother-in-law. I just sat there listening to them tear apart everything I had worked for over the past 8 years. After that meeting, Riley increased her pressure on my parents. She would show up at the restaurant during slow periods and talk to my mother about how Kevin could improve things. She brought articles about restaurant management and left them on my father's desk. She even suggested that they should give Kevin a trial period to prove himself. My parents finally gave in to the pressure 3 weeks ago. They called me into the office and said they wanted to try something new. They asked if I would be willing to step back for 3 months and let Kevin take over as acting manager. They said it would be good for me to take a break and that maybe Kevin's ideas could help the business grow. I was stunned. After 8 years of working my way up through every position, learning every recipe, and building relationships with our suppliers and regular customers, they wanted me to step aside for someone who would work there for only 2 years in a support role. I asked them if they were serious, and my father said they thought it would be fair to give Kevin a chance to show what he could do. I agreed to step back, but only because I was curious to see how badly Kevin would mess things up. I also figured my parents would realize their mistake pretty quickly once they saw Kevin in action without me there to guide him. I told them I would take a leave of absence for 3 months, but I wanted to remain available if there were any emergencies. Kevin started his trial period 2 weeks ago, and I have been staying away from the restaurant as promised. However, I have been hearing things from our servers and kitchen staff who still text me when they have questions or concerns. The stories they are telling me make it clear that Kevin is in way over his head. During his first week, Kevin decided to change our sauce recipes without consulting my mother. He thought they were too garlicky and reduced the garlic by half in our marinara and meat sauces. We had 3 customers complain that their food tasted different, and one of our regular customers actually sent her pasta back to the kitchen because it tasted wrong. Kevin also fired our head server Maria, who had been working for us for 5 years. Maria was always professional and knew how to handle difficult customers. She was also fluent in Spanish, which helped us serve our Latino customers better. Kevin fired her because he said she was not enthusiastic enough about his new ideas for improving customer service. He replaced Maria with someone Riley recommended from her advertising company. This new server had never worked in a restaurant before and spent her first shift asking customers to repeat their orders multiple times because she did not know our menu. She also spilled red wine on a customer's white shirt during her second shift. Kevin has also been trying to implement new procedures that make no sense. He wants servers to upsell appetizers and desserts to every table, even though our portions are already generous and most customers leave feeling full. He created a script for servers to read when they greet customers, which sounds awkward and forced. Our longtime customers have been asking what happened to the friendly, relaxed atmosphere they were used to. The kitchen staff is also having problems with Kevin's management style. He keeps changing the prep schedule and trying to alter recipes without understanding how our kitchen workflow operates. Yesterday, one of our cooks texted me to say they ran out of breadsticks during the dinner rush because Kevin changed the baking schedule. Riley has been coming to the restaurant almost every day since Kevin took over. She acts like she is some kind of consultant, walking around with a notebook and observing everything. She has been asking our servers detailed questions about their sales numbers and customer feedback. Some of our staff members have told me they feel like they are being watched and judged constantly. My parents called me yesterday asking if I could come in to help with some issues Kevin was having with our vendor payments. Apparently, he messed up our food orders for this week and we are running low on several key ingredients. They sounded stressed and asked if I could just come in for a few hours to straighten things out. I told them no. I reminded them that they asked me to step back for 3 months, and it has only been 2 weeks. I said Kevin needed to figure these problems out on his own if he was going to prove he could run the restaurant. I also pointed out that this was exactly the kind of situation I had been handling successfully for years before they decided to give Kevin a chance. Now Riley is calling me selfish and stubborn. She said I am sabotaging Kevin's efforts by refusing to help when the restaurant needs me. She accused me of wanting Kevin to fail just so I could get my position back. She said I should be supporting the family business instead of letting my pride get in the way. My parents are caught in the middle of this situation. They seem to realize that Kevin is struggling, but they do not want to admit they made a mistake so soon after giving him the trial period. They also do not want to hurt Riley's feelings by acknowledging that her husband is not qualified to run our restaurant. I am not sure what to do at this point. Part of me wants to let Kevin continue failing until my parents are forced to admit they were wrong. But another part of me is worried about the long-term damage he might do to our family business. We have spent 20 years building our reputation in this community, and I do not want to see that destroyed because of Kevin's inexperience and Riley's misguided ambitions. I am also frustrated that my parents gave in to Riley's pressure without really considering how this decision would affect me. After 8 years of dedicated work and learning every aspect of the business, they were willing to push me aside based on Riley's complaints and Kevin's empty promises about increasing profits. Should I continue staying away and let Kevin prove he cannot handle the job? Should I go back and try to help, even though that might enable Riley and Kevin to take credit for any improvements? Or should I start making plans to leave the family business entirely and find work somewhere else? Update 1: I wanted to update everyone on what has been happening with the restaurant situation. Things have gotten much worse than I expected, and I am dealing with some developments that I never saw coming. First, let me tell you what happened during the rest of Kevin's trial period. After my parents called asking for help with vendor payments, things continued to go downhill rapidly. By the end of his 3rd week, Kevin had managed to mess up almost every aspect of the restaurant's operations. Our regular customers started complaining more frequently about the food quality and service. Kevin kept changing recipes and procedures without understanding why we did things a certain way. He decided our pizza dough recipe was too time-consuming and switched to a frozen dough that made our pizzas taste like cardboard. When customers complained, Kevin told our servers to explain that we were updating our recipes to meet modern tastes. The financial situation became critical during Kevin's 4th week. He had been ordering supplies without checking our budget or comparing prices between vendors. Our food costs increased by almost 30% because Kevin was ordering expensive ingredients we did not need while running out of basic items like flour and cheese. He also forgot to pay our insurance premium, and we received a cancellation notice. Kevin's management of the staff reached a breaking point when he fired 2 more long-term employees. He let go of Tony, our experienced line cook who had been with us for 4 years, because Tony questioned Kevin's decision to change our preparation methods for our most popular pasta dish. Kevin also fired Jessica, our reliable weekend server, because she refused to use his scripted greeting with customers. Riley continued to come to the restaurant daily, acting like she was Kevin's business advisor. She started rearranging our dining room furniture and putting up new decorations without asking my parents. She also convinced Kevin to spend money on expensive new menus and promotional materials that featured Kevin's photo as the restaurant manager. The situation exploded during Kevin's 5th week when we received complaints from the health department. Kevin had been ignoring our standard food safety procedures, and an inspector found several violations including improper food storage temperatures and inadequate cleaning of equipment. We received a warning that could have resulted in temporary closure if not corrected immediately. That same week, Kevin made a decision that finally forced my parents to act. Without consulting anyone, he booked an expensive catering job for a wedding reception that was supposed to serve 150 people. The problem was that Kevin promised menu items we had never made before and quoted a price that was barely above our food costs. He also scheduled this catering job for a Saturday when we would normally be busy with regular dinner service. When my parents found out about the catering disaster 2 days before the wedding, they panicked and called me. My father explained the situation and asked if I could help them figure out how to handle the catering job without ruining our reputation. I told them I would help, but only if they ended Kevin's trial period immediately. I returned to the restaurant that Thursday and spent 12 hours preparing for the catering job. I had to completely redesign the menu to use ingredients we actually had available and could prepare with our equipment. I also had to call in favors from our former employees to help with the extra workload. The catering job went smoothly, but it cost us almost $1,000 in overtime pay and ingredient waste. After the catering crisis, my parents officially ended Kevin's trial period. They asked him to step back to his previous assistant manager role, but Kevin refused. He said he was not going to accept a demotion after proving he could handle bigger responsibilities. Riley supported Kevin's position and accused my parents of not giving him enough time to implement his ideas. Kevin and Riley left the restaurant that day and have not been back since. Riley called my mother several times over the next week demanding an apology and insisting that Kevin deserved another chance. When my parents refused, Riley said they were making a mistake and would regret not supporting Kevin's vision for the business. I have been back at the restaurant for 2 weeks now, trying to repair the damage Kevin caused during his 5-week trial period. I had to rehire Tony and Jessica, who fortunately were still available and willing to return. I also had to spend time rebuilding relationships with our regular customers and explaining why our food and service had been inconsistent recently. The financial damage was significant. Between Kevin's overspending on supplies, the money we lost on the catering job, the cost of replacing fired employees, and the revenue we lost from customers who stopped coming during Kevin's trial period, we are looking at losses of over $8,000. This is money our family business could not afford to lose, especially during what is normally our slower season. But the part that bothers me most is what I discovered when I started going through the paperwork from Kevin's time as manager. I found receipts for supplies and equipment that never arrived at the restaurant. When I called our vendors to ask about these missing items, I learned that Kevin had been having supplies delivered to a different address. It turns out that Kevin had been using our restaurant's vendor accounts to purchase equipment and supplies for his own catering business. He had been planning to start a competing restaurant and was using our money to buy what he needed to get started. The address where our supplies were being delivered was a commercial kitchen Kevin had been renting across town. When I showed my parents this evidence, they were shocked. My father called Kevin to confront him about the missing supplies, but Kevin claimed it was all a misunderstanding. He said he was just storing some restaurant equipment at another location temporarily and planned to bring everything back. Riley called my mother the next day screaming about how we were attacking Kevin unfairly. She said Kevin was just trying to help the family business by exploring expansion opportunities. She accused us of being paranoid and trying to make Kevin look bad because we were jealous of his success. My parents have been trying to get Kevin to return the equipment and supplies he took, but he has been avoiding their calls. Riley sent a text message saying Kevin would return everything once we apologized for treating him badly and gave him credit for his contributions to the restaurant. This whole situation has shown me that Riley and Kevin were never really interested in helping our family business. They saw an opportunity to use our restaurant as a stepping stone for their own plans, and they were willing to risk destroying what my parents built over 20 years to achieve their goals. I am still working to get our restaurant back to normal operations. Most of our regular customers have returned, and our staff is relieved to have consistent management again. But the trust between my family members has been damaged in ways that might never heal completely. Riley has not spoken to me since I returned to the restaurant. She still calls our parents occasionally to defend Kevin's actions, but she refuses to acknowledge the financial damage they caused or apologize for supporting his scheme to use our business for his own benefit. I am not sure how to move forward with my relationship with Riley and Kevin. Part of me wants to focus on rebuilding the restaurant and forget about their betrayal. But another part of me thinks they should face consequences for stealing from our family business and lying about their intentions. Update 2: The situation with Riley and Kevin has taken another turn that I did not see coming. I thought the worst was behind us after we discovered Kevin's scheme to steal supplies for his own restaurant, but things have gotten more complicated. About 3 weeks after my last update, Kevin finally returned most of the equipment and supplies he had taken from our restaurant. He brought everything back on a Tuesday afternoon when he knew I would not be there, and he left it all in our storage room without explanation. Some items were missing, and several pieces of equipment had been damaged, but my parents decided not to pursue the matter further because they wanted to avoid more family conflict. Riley had been avoiding all contact with our family since the supply theft was discovered. She stopped calling my parents and did not show up for my mother's birthday dinner, which hurt my mother deeply. When my parents tried calling Riley, she would either not answer or hang up as soon as she heard their voices. But then Riley started showing up at the restaurant again, not to help or apologize, but to cause problems for us with our customers. The first incident happened on a busy Friday night when Riley came in with 3 friends and demanded a table even though we were fully booked with reservations. When our hostess explained that we could seat them in about an hour, Riley became loud and rude. Riley started complaining loudly about how the restaurant had gone downhill and how the service used to be better when Kevin was managing things. She was speaking loud enough for other customers to hear, and she made comments about how our family did not know how to run a business properly. She eventually left without eating, but not before creating an uncomfortable scene that disrupted other customers' dinners. This pattern continued over the next few weeks. Riley would show up during our busiest times and find reasons to complain about everything from the temperature in the dining room to the speed of service. She would make negative comments about our food and tell other customers that she knew better restaurants in the area. She also started leaving negative reviews on our social media pages using fake accounts. The situation escalated when Riley began contacting our regular customers directly. She got phone numbers from old reservation lists and started calling people to tell them about problems she claimed to have witnessed at the restaurant. She told Mrs. Rodriguez, one of our longtime customers, that she had seen mice in our kitchen. She told Mr. Thompson that our health department violations were more serious than we had admitted. These calls were completely false, but they caused several customers to cancel reservations or stop coming to the restaurant. Mrs. Rodriguez called my mother in tears because she had been eating at our restaurant for over 10 years and was heartbroken to think we had health problems. It took my mother an hour on the phone to convince Mrs. Rodriguez that Riley's claims were lies. I realized Riley was deliberately trying to sabotage our business when one of our vendors told me that someone had been calling to complain about our payment history. Riley had been contacting our suppliers and claiming that our restaurant was having financial problems and might not be able to pay our bills. This could have damaged our credit relationships with vendors we had been working with for years. My parents finally decided they had to take action when Riley's sabotage started affecting our employees. Riley called Jessica, the server we had rehired after Kevin fired her, and told her that the restaurant was failing and she should look for another job immediately. Riley claimed that we would probably have to close within a few months and that Jessica would be left without work if she did not find something else soon. Jessica came to work the next day upset and confused. She asked me if the restaurant was really in trouble and if she should be worried about her job security. I had to reassure her that Riley was lying and that we had no plans to close. But the fact that Riley was now targeting our employees directly showed how far she was willing to go to hurt us. I decided to confront Riley directly about her behavior. I called her and asked to meet for coffee so we could discuss the situation. Riley agreed to meet, probably because she thought she could convince me that Kevin deserved another chance to run the restaurant. When we met, I brought copies of the vendor receipts showing that Kevin had been stealing supplies, along with documentation of the financial losses he had caused during his trial period. I also had screenshots of the fake social media accounts Riley had been using to leave negative reviews about our restaurant. Riley looked at the evidence but refused to admit that she or Kevin had done anything wrong. She said Kevin was just being entrepreneurial and that taking some supplies was not a big deal because he was family. She claimed her negative reviews were honest opinions about problems she had observed, and she said she was just trying to help our regular customers make informed decisions. I told Riley that her actions were damaging our family business and hurting our employees who depended on the restaurant for their livelihood. I asked her to stop interfering with our operations and to apologize to our parents for the problems she had caused. Riley refused to apologize. Instead, she accused me of being controlling and vindictive. She said I was trying to turn our parents against her because I was threatened by Kevin's ideas for improving the restaurant. She also claimed that I was exaggerating the financial losses Kevin had caused and that the restaurant would be more successful if I was not involved. The conversation ended with Riley walking out of the coffee shop after telling me that she would not stop fighting for what she believed was right. She said Kevin had real vision for the restaurant industry and that our family was too old-fashioned to recognize his potential. 2 days later, I learned that Riley and Kevin had taken their sabotage campaign to the next level. They had contacted the local business journal and given an interview claiming that our family restaurant was discriminating against employees with innovative ideas. The article quoted Kevin saying that he had been fired from our restaurant for suggesting modernization improvements that threatened traditional management. The article did not mention Kevin's theft of supplies or the financial damage he had caused. Instead, it portrayed him as a progressive manager who had been pushed out by a family that was resistant to change. Riley was quoted as saying that our restaurant represented everything wrong with family businesses that put personal relationships ahead of professional competence. This newspaper article was the final straw for my parents. They had been hoping that Riley would eventually calm down and apologize for her behavior, but seeing their family conflicts displayed in public was too much. My father called Riley and told her that she was no longer welcome at the restaurant and that she should stop trying to damage our business. Riley responded by threatening to sue us for defamation. She claimed that we had been spreading lies about Kevin's management abilities and that his reputation in the restaurant industry had been damaged by our accusations. She demanded that we publish a public apology and pay Kevin compensation for lost business opportunities. We consulted with a lawyer who reviewed all the evidence we had collected about Kevin's theft and Riley's sabotage campaign. The lawyer told us that Riley's threats were baseless and that we actually had grounds to pursue legal action against her for harassment and intentional interference with our business relationships. My parents decided not to file a lawsuit because they did not want to escalate the family conflict further. but they did authorize our lawyer to send Riley and Kevin a cease and desist letter demanding that they stop contacting our customers, employees, and vendors. The letter also warned them that we would pursue all legal remedies if their harassment continued. Riley received the cease and desist letter last week. She called my mother crying and claiming that we were trying to destroy her family. She said Kevin had been counting on the restaurant management position to advance his career, and now his reputation had been ruined by our accusations. She begged my mother to drop the legal threats and give Kevin another chance to prove himself. My mother told Riley that the decision was final and that Kevin would never be allowed to work at our restaurant again. She also told Riley that their relationship could only be repaired if Riley stopped trying to hurt our business and apologized for the damage she had already caused. Riley hung up the phone and has not contacted any of us since. Kevin sent one text message to my father saying that he was considering starting his own legal action against us, but nothing has come of that threat so far. The restaurant is doing better now that Riley and Kevin are no longer interfering with our operations. Our regular customers have returned, and we have been able to hire reliable staff to replace the people Kevin fired. The financial losses from Kevin's trial period were significant, but we are slowly recovering. However, the damage to our family relationships may be permanent. My parents are heartbroken that Riley chose to support Kevin's lies and sabotage rather than admitting that she had made a mistake. They feel like they have lost a daughter, and I am not sure those wounds will ever heal completely. Update 3: I am writing this final update because several people have been asking what happened with Riley and Kevin, and because some new developments have brought this whole situation to what I think is a permanent conclusion. For about a month after the cease and desist letter, Riley and Kevin stayed away from our restaurant and stopped their harassment campaign. I thought maybe they had finally realized that their behavior was destructive and decided to move on with their lives. Our business was recovering steadily, and my parents seemed to be adjusting to the reality that their relationship with Riley might be over. But 3 weeks ago, Riley showed up at the restaurant during our lunch rush with a man I had never seen before. She walked straight to my parents' office without speaking to any of our staff and demanded to have a private meeting. The man she brought with her introduced himself as a business consultant who specialized in restaurant management. Riley announced that she and Kevin had decided to make one final attempt to resolve our family conflict. She said they had hired this consultant to conduct an independent evaluation of our restaurant's operations and management structure. She claimed that if the consultant agreed that Kevin's ideas had merit, then our parents should reconsider their decision to ban him from the restaurant. My parents were so shocked by Riley's audacity that they did not immediately refuse this proposal. The consultant started asking detailed questions about our revenue, profit margins, staff turnover, and customer satisfaction ratings. He wanted to see our financial records and interview our employees about management effectiveness. I was not at the restaurant when this happened because I had been meeting with suppliers, but our head server called me immediately. When I arrived 30 minutes later, I found Riley and her consultant sitting in our office taking notes while my parents answered questions about our business operations. I asked Riley what she thought she was doing, and she said she was trying to find an objective way to resolve our disagreement about Kevin's qualifications. She said the consultant would provide an unbiased assessment of whether Kevin's management approach could benefit our restaurant. She claimed this was her final attempt to prove that our family had been unfair to Kevin. I told Riley that we were not interested in any evaluation and asked her and the consultant to leave immediately. Riley refused to go and said she had a right to be concerned about a business that would eventually be part of her inheritance. She claimed that as a family member, she deserved input into major decisions about the restaurant's management. The consultant supported Riley's position and said he had already observed several operational inefficiencies that could be improved with proper management. He suggested that Kevin's previous difficulties had been caused by inadequate training rather than incompetence, and that Kevin deserved another opportunity with better preparation. At this point, I realized that Riley was never going to accept that she had been wrong about Kevin. No amount of evidence about his theft, lies, or incompetence was going to change her mind. She was so invested in proving that Kevin was qualified to run our restaurant that she was willing to hire outside consultants to support her position. I called our lawyer from the restaurant and explained what was happening. The lawyer spoke to Riley on the phone and reminded her that the cease and desist letter prohibited her from interfering with our business operations. The lawyer also told the consultant that he was not authorized to access our confidential business information and that his presence constituted trespassing. Riley became furious when the lawyer got involved. She accused me of being paranoid and controlling, and she said I was using legal threats to prevent her from protecting her family's interests. She claimed that I was afraid of objective evaluation because I knew Kevin was more qualified than me to run the restaurant. The consultant packed up his notes and left after the lawyer threatened to call the police. Riley followed him out, but not before telling my parents that they were making the biggest mistake of their lives by choosing me over Kevin. She said they would regret not listening to her advice when the restaurant failed under my leadership. My parents were shaken by this encounter. My mother started crying after Riley left, and my father said he never imagined that his daughter would go to such lengths to undermine our family business. They realized that Riley was not just supporting Kevin out of loyalty, but that she genuinely believed I was unqualified to run the restaurant despite 8 years of successful management. 2 days later, we received a bill from Riley's business consultant for $1,200. The bill claimed that we had requested his services and owed payment for a comprehensive restaurant evaluation. Our lawyer contacted the consultant and informed him that no one had authorized his services and that we would not be paying his fee. The consultant called Riley to demand payment, and apparently she told him that our family should be responsible for the cost since the evaluation was meant to benefit our business. When the consultant threatened to take legal action against Riley for non-payment, she called my father and asked him to pay the bill to avoid further complications. My father refused to pay for a consultant that Riley had hired without permission. He told Riley that she was responsible for any costs related to her continued attempts to interfere with our restaurant. Riley responded by saying that our parents were choosing money over family relationships and that they would lose both their daughter and their business because of their stubbornness. That was the last conversation Riley had with our parents. She has not called or visited since then, and she did not show up for our father's birthday last week even though my mother specifically invited her. My parents sent Riley a birthday card last month, but she did not acknowledge it or respond in any way. Kevin has also disappeared from our lives completely. He found a job at a chain restaurant in the next county, according to what Riley told my aunt before they stopped speaking. Riley told my aunt that Kevin was much happier working for people who appreciated his talents and vision for restaurant management. The financial impact of this whole situation has been significant but manageable. Between Kevin's theft, the business we lost during his trial period, legal fees, and the costs of rehiring and retraining staff, our family probably lost around $15,000. We have been working extra hours and cutting unnecessary expenses to make up for these losses. More importantly, our restaurant's reputation has recovered completely. Our regular customers are happy with the consistent food quality and service, and we have been getting positive reviews again. Several customers have specifically commented that they are glad to see familiar faces among our staff and that the restaurant feels welcoming again. My parents have been talking about making me the official owner of the restaurant within the next year. They want to ensure that there can never be another situation where outside family members try to take control of the business. They also want to protect the restaurant from any future inheritance disputes that might arise. I have mixed feelings about Riley cutting off contact with our family. Part of me is relieved that she can no longer interfere with our restaurant operations or create drama during family gatherings. But I also feel sad that my sister chose to end our relationship rather than admit she had been wrong about Kevin. My parents are heartbroken about losing Riley, but they have accepted that she made her choice when she decided to support Kevin's lies and sabotage over her own family's well-being. They hope that someday Riley will realize what she gave up and try to rebuild their relationship, but they are not holding their breath. As for me, I am focused on continuing to build our family restaurant into something my parents can be proud of. I have learned a lot about business management, family dynamics, and standing up for what is right during this difficult period. I am confident that our restaurant will continue to thrive without Riley and Kevin's interference. The whole experience has taught me that sometimes family members will choose to support outsiders over their own relatives, even when the evidence clearly shows they are making a mistake. It has also shown me that some people will never admit they were wrong, no matter how much damage their stubbornness causes to the people they claim to love. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My husband's work project was actually an affair with his engaged boss. When her fiancé reached out, the whole truth came out and my world shattered. I never thought I'd be here, pouring my heart out to strangers on the internet. But I guess life has a way of surprising you. I'm Sarah, 29F, and I've been married to Jake, 32M, for 3 years. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party 5 years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was running late because my car wouldn't start, and I burst into the party flustered and apologetic. Jake was the first person I bumped into, quite literally. He steadied me with his hands and made a joke about my dramatic entrance. We spent the rest of the night talking and laughing. Jake and I came from different worlds. I grew up in a small town, the youngest of 4 kids. My parents owned a local diner, and I spent my childhood helping out there, learning the value of hard work and family. Jake, on the other hand, was a city boy through and through. An only child, he was raised by his mom after his dad left when he was young. He threw himself into computers and coding as a way to cope with the absence of his father. Despite our different backgrounds, we clicked instantly. We started dating a week after we met, and things moved quickly from there. Within 6 months, we were living together in a tiny studio apartment downtown. It was cramped and the neighbors were noisy, but we were happy. We'd stay up late talking about our dreams, my desire to start my own graphic design company, his ambition to create the next big app. A year into our relationship, Jake proposed. It wasn't a grand, elaborate affair, just the two of us on a hike, our favorite activity. We reached the summit of the trail, and as I was catching my breath and admiring the view, I turned around to find Jake on one knee. The ring was simple, a small diamond set in a silver band. He later told me he'd been saving up for months to buy it. Our wedding was beautiful, held in a rustic barn venue near my hometown. All our friends and family were there. I'll never forget the look on Jake's face as I walked down the aisle, or the way my dad teared up as he gave me away. We wrote our own vows, promising to always be honest with each other and to face life's challenges together. The first 2 years of our marriage were great. We both worked from home, me as a freelance graphic designer, Jake as a software engineer for a tech startup. We'd have lunch dates in our backyard, go for evening walks with our rescue dog, Max, and spend weekends exploring new hiking trails or trying out new restaurants. We were saving up for a big Europe trip, planning to visit all the art museums I'd always dreamed of seeing. We had our disagreements, of course. Jake could be a bit of a workaholic, often losing track of time when he was deep into a project. I, on the other hand, Was sometimes too focused on the little details, nitpicking things that didn't really matter. But we always managed to work through our issues, usually over a homemade dinner and a bottle of wine. Everything seemed perfect until about 3 months ago. Jake started acting differently. It was subtle at first. He began working longer hours, often staying up late into the night. When I'd ask him about it, he'd say he was working on a big project. I didn't think much of it at first. His job could be demanding sometimes, and I knew he was hoping for a promotion. But then I noticed other changes. He became protective of his phone, always keeping it face down and taking it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. He started going out more often, claiming he was meeting colleagues for drinks or attending work events. These outings became more frequent, sometimes happening 3 or 4 times a week. I tried to talk to him about it, but he'd brush off my concerns, saying I was being paranoid. But my gut feeling told me something was off. I started to withdraw, throwing myself into my work as a way to distract myself from the growing distance between us. Last week, I decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I checked his phone while he was in the shower. We'd always had an open phone policy, never hiding anything from each other. But lately, Jake had been so secretive that I felt I had no choice. What I found shocked me to my core. There were dozens of messages between Jake and someone saved as A in his contacts. The messages were flirty and intimate, talking about meeting up and how much they missed each other. There were even a few pictures exchanged, though thankfully nothing explicit. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the messages, each one feeling like a knife to my heart. I heard the shower turn off and quickly put the phone back where I found it, my mind racing. I confronted Jake as soon as he got out of the shower. At first, he tried to deny it, but when I told him I'd seen the messages, he broke down. He admitted that it was Amy, 28F, a new colleague at work. They had been having an emotional affair for the past 2 months. Jake swore nothing physical had happened and that he wanted to work on our marriage. He said he'd cut all contact with Amy and even look for a new job. But I don't know if I can trust him anymore. The Jake I thought I knew would never do this to me. I'm staying with my sister Lily, 31F, right now. I need some space to think. Jake keeps calling and texting, begging for another chance. My friends are split. Some say I should give him another chance, while others think I should leave him. I'm torn. On one hand, I love Jake and the life we've built together. We have a house, our dog Max, and we were talking about starting a family soon. On the other hand, how can I ever trust him again? Every time his phone buzzes, will I wonder who he's talking to? I keep thinking back to the early days of our relationship, how happy we were. We'd spend hours talking about our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. Jake was always so open and honest with me. Or at least, I thought he was. Now I'm questioning everything. My parents are urging me to try couples counseling. They've been married for 35 years and say every marriage has its rough patches. But is infidelity just a rough patch? I'm not so sure. I'm also angry at Amy. How could she knowingly engage in a relationship with a married man? I found her on social media and was tempted to message her, but my sister talked me out of it. She said it would only complicate things further. I haven't eaten properly in days. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see those messages. I keep wondering if there's more that I don't know about. Did they meet up in person? Did they kiss? Did it go further than that? Jake and I had plans. We were saving up for that Europe trip next year. We talked about having kids in the next couple of years. Now all of those plans feel like they're crumbling around me. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to forgive him and try to move past this. But another part of me feels like this betrayal is too big to overcome. How can I ever look at him the same way again? I could use some advice. Has anyone been through something similar? How did you handle it? Is it possible to rebuild trust after something like this? Or am I better off walking away now, before we have kids or more entangled finances? Thank you for reading this long post. I just needed to get it all out. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. Thank you all for your advice and support. It really helped me gain some perspective. After spending a week at my sister's place, I decided to move back home and have a serious talk with Jake. I felt I needed answers before I could make any decisions about our future. My sister Lily was worried about me going back, but I assured her I'd call if things got out of hand. When I got home, the house was a mess. There were takeout containers everywhere, and it looked like Jake hadn't done laundry since I left. Jake himself was a sight. He looked like he hadn't slept or shaved in days. As soon as I walked in, he broke down in tears, apologizing over and over. We sat down at our kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared so many meals and conversations, and I told him I needed the whole truth. No more lies or half-truths. Over the next few hours, Jake told me everything. It turns out the emotional affair had been going on for longer than he initially admitted, nearly 4 months. He and Amy had met at a work conference in San Diego. Jake had gone to represent their company, while Amy was there from a partner firm. They were seated next to each other during one of the keynote speeches and hit it off immediately. At first, it was just friendly chats and lunch meetups. They discovered they had a lot in common. Both were only children, both loved obscure indie bands, both were into rock climbing. Jake said he enjoyed talking to someone who understood the pressures of his job. But over time, it evolved into something more. They started texting regularly, sharing inside jokes and complaining about their workdays. Jake admitted he started looking forward to her messages, feeling a thrill every time his phone buzzed. Jake swore that nothing physical ever happened beyond a kiss. According to him, they kissed once after a late night at the office. They had been working on a joint project, and after everyone else had left, they ended up alone together. One thing led to another, and they kissed. Jake said that's when he realized how far things had gone. He claimed he tried to end it then, but Amy was persistent, and he was weak. I asked him why risk our marriage for this? He said he felt neglected. Apparently, I had been so focused on my work lately that he felt like we were drifting apart. I had taken on a big project for a new client, and I'd been working long hours to meet the deadlines. Jake said he missed the easy companionship we used to have. Instead of talking to me about it, he sought comfort elsewhere. I was furious. Yes, I had been busy with work, but that's no excuse for infidelity. I told him he should have talked to me if he was feeling neglected. We could have worked on it together, maybe planned a weekend getaway or set aside specific time for just us. Instead, he chose to betray my trust. After our talk, I needed some time to process everything. I went for a long walk in the park where we used to have picnics. As I sat on our favorite bench, watching families play frisbee and couples walking hand in hand, I realized I wasn't ready to give up on our marriage just yet. We'd built a life together, and I wasn't prepared to throw that away without at least trying to fix things. But I also knew things couldn't go back to how they were before. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. I spent hours thinking about what I needed to feel secure in our relationship again. I went home and told Jake I was willing to try and work things out, but with conditions. He had to find a new job immediately. I couldn't bear the thought of him working with Amy every day. He had to give me full access to his phone and computer. No more secrets. We would start couples counseling. He had to cut all contact with Amy, effective immediately. Jake agreed to all my conditions without hesitation. He even showed me as he blocked Amy's number and deleted her from all his social media accounts. It was a start, but I knew we had a long road ahead of us. The next day, Jake started job hunting. He had an interview lined up by the end of the week. We also booked our first couples counseling session for next Tuesday. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. Some days, I feel hopeful that we can work through this. Other days, the anger and hurt feel overwhelming. I find myself scrutinizing Jake's every move, wondering if he's being truthful. It's exhausting. We've started having dinner together every night, like we used to in the early days of our relationship. We talk about our days, our feelings, our fears. It's not always easy. Sometimes the conversation turns to the affair, and things get tense. But we're trying. I've also started focusing on myself more. I've picked up my old hobby of painting, something I'd let fall by the wayside in recent years. It's therapeutic, allowing me to express my emotions on canvas when I can't find the words. My friends and family have been incredibly supportive. My sister Lily checks in on me every day, and my best friend Emma, 30F, has been a constant source of support. Jake's mom, Linda, 58F, even called me to apologize for her son's behavior and to offer her support, whatever I decide to do. I know the road ahead won't be easy. Rebuilding trust takes time, and there's no guarantee we'll succeed. But for now, I'm willing to try. We've invested 5 years in this relationship, and I want to be able to say I did everything I could before walking away. I'll keep you updated on how things progress. Thank you again for all your support. It means more than you know. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. Jake found a new job within 2 weeks of starting his search. It was a lateral move in terms of position, but he took it without hesitation. He's been transparent with his phone and computer, often leaving them unlocked around me. We've been to 4 couples counseling sessions, which have been challenging but helpful. Our therapist, Dr. Martinez, has been guiding us through some difficult conversations. We've talked about our communication issues, our expectations for the relationship, and how we can rebuild trust. Jake's been actively participating, sharing his feelings and listening to mine. It's been hard, but I felt like we were making progress. Things seemed to be improving slowly. We were communicating better, and I was starting to feel like maybe we could get through this. We even started planning a weekend getaway to the beach house where we spent our honeymoon. I thought it might be a good way to reconnect and make new, positive memories. But then something happened that turned everything upside down. Last week, I received a message request on Facebook from someone named David, 30M. When I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. David introduced himself as Amy's fiancé. He had discovered Amy's affair with Jake and wanted to know if I was aware of the situation. I was shocked. Jake had told me Amy was single. I immediately called Jake at work and told him to come home. When he arrived, I showed him the message. Jake went pale and started stammering, trying to explain. It turns out Jake had lied about several things. Amy wasn't just a colleague, she was his team lead. And she definitely wasn't single. Jake claimed he didn't know she was engaged at first, but admitted he found out about a month into their affair. He said he tried to end it then, but Amy threatened to make trouble for him at work if he did. I was furious. Not only had Jake cheated, but he'd continued to lie even after promising complete honesty. I felt like a fool for believing him, for thinking we could work things out. All the progress we'd made in therapy felt like it had been wiped away in an instant. I replied to David, confirming that I knew about the affair and apologizing for the pain this must be causing him. We ended up talking on the phone for over an hour, comparing notes and filling in gaps in each other's knowledge. David told me that he and Amy had been together for 5 years. They'd gotten engaged 6 months ago and were in the middle of planning their wedding. He found out about the affair when he overheard Amy on the phone with Jake, talking in a way that was clearly more than friendly. David told me that Amy had confessed to the affair when he confronted her, but she'd minimized her role, claiming Jake had pursued her aggressively and she'd only given in due to a moment of weakness. This was vastly different from the story Jake had told me. After my conversation with David, I confronted Jake again. This time, faced with the fact that I'd spoken to David, Jake finally told me the full truth. The affair had been physical from early on. They had slept together multiple times, both at hotels and at our house when I was visiting my parents. I was devastated. Every new revelation felt like a fresh betrayal. The man I thought I knew, the man I had married and planned a future with, felt like a stranger to me. I thought about all the times he'd lied to my face, all the times he'd been with her while I was blissfully unaware. I packed a bag and went back to my sister's place. I told Jake I needed time and space to think about what I wanted to do next. He begged me to stay, to give him another chance, but I couldn't bear to look at him. I'm staying with my sister indefinitely. Lily has been incredibly supportive, letting me cry on her shoulder and helping me think through my options. I've contacted a lawyer to discuss my options. I don't know if I'll file for divorce immediately, but I want to be prepared. I feel lost and betrayed. The future I thought I had has crumbled around me. But I'm also angry at Jake for his betrayal, angry at Amy for her role in this mess, and angry at myself for being so blind. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I deserve better than this. Thank you all for your continued support. I'll update again when I've figured out my next steps. Update 3, it's been 2 months since my last update, and I've made some big decisions. After careful consideration and many discussions with my lawyer, I've decided to file for divorce. The trust between Jake and me is irreparably broken, and I realized I couldn't spend the rest of my life wondering if he was being truthful. The process has been difficult. Jake initially contested the divorce, begging for another chance. He showed up at my sister's place unannounced one evening, causing quite a scene. Lily's husband, Mark, had to threaten to call the police before Jake would leave. It was painful to see him like that, but it also reinforced my decision. I couldn't be responsible for Jake's emotions anymore. After a stern talk with his own lawyer, Jake finally accepted that our marriage was over. We're now in the process of dividing our assets. It's strange, reducing 5 years of marriage to a list of items and bank accounts. We're selling the house, neither of us wants to live there with all the memories it holds. Deciding what to do with Max, our dog, was the hardest part. In the end, we agreed on joint custody. It's not ideal, but I couldn't bear the thought of never seeing him again. I've moved out of our house and found a small apartment of my own. It's in a different part of the city, close to a park where I can take Max for walks. Starting over has been tough, but also liberating in a way. I'm rediscovering who I am outside of my relationship with Jake. I've been redecorating the apartment, filling it with bright colors and art, things that are purely me. As for my career, I've thrown myself into my work. My boss has been understanding of my situation and has even offered me a promotion. It would mean managing my own team of designers. I'm considering taking it, as it would be a fresh challenge and a chance to grow professionally. I've also been in individual therapy, which has been incredibly helpful. My therapist, Dr. Patel, has been helping me work through my feelings of betrayal and anger. It's made me realize that while Jake's actions were inexcusable, there were issues in our marriage that we both contributed to. I'm working on myself, learning to set better boundaries and communicate more effectively. I've had some contact with David, Amy's fiancé. He decided to end their engagement, and last I heard, he was also in therapy to work through the betrayal. We've formed an unlikely friendship, bonding over our shared experience. It's been helpful to talk to someone who understands exactly what I'm going through. As for Amy, I heard through the grapevine that she was let go from her job due to the unprofessional relationship with a subordinate. I don't know how I feel about that. Part of me feels a sense of justice, but mostly I just feel sad for everyone involved. Jake has made several attempts to reconcile, sending flowers and heartfelt letters. The last one arrived just yesterday, a long, handwritten note apologizing for everything and asking for one more chance. While a small part of me misses the life we had, I know I've made the right decision in moving on. I deserve someone who will be honest and faithful. Looking ahead, I'm cautiously optimistic about my future. Yes, this experience has been painful, but it's also taught me a lot about myself and what I want in a relationship. I'm not ready to date yet, but I'm open to the possibility of finding love again someday. For now, I'm focusing on healing and rebuilding my life. I'm planning a solo trip to Europe, the one Jake and I were supposed to take together. It feels like a symbolic way of reclaiming my independence. I'm excited to explore the art museums I've always dreamed of seeing, to wander the streets of Paris and Rome, to find myself again. Thank you all for your support throughout